Yo, how are y'all doing today? What up, what up, what up? I'd like to welcome you guys back to the Big Chop broadcast. I'm your host, Xavier Walker, aka Big Chop. And today we're going to be talking about the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. I know everyone's excited for that, all sports fans. I'm especially excited. But first off, before we get into that, we're going to talk about the quote of the day on this beautiful MLK Monday. That's how we're going to start off the show right here. So, for the quote of the day, we have honesty sounds harsh to people who live behind lies. Just want y'all to think about that one. That's one of my favorites. I just heard that one about a week ago, and I've definitely been thinking about that one for a while. But so what y'all think of that one? Just let me know. But moving on, like I said, we're here to talk about the NFL draft. So let's dig right into it. Y'all hear that? I think it's time for us to dive into this NFL draft. So for some background, the 2026 NFL Draft will take place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, April 23rd to April 25th, with three locations throughout the 3 days, including North Shore, Point State Park, and Acrisure Stadium, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. In my opinion, this year's NFL Draft will be one of the most eventful. Just recent, just in recent news, just for two factors. One being the college transfer portal. That's definitely crazy. We have over 11,000 people in the transfer portal. All NCAA Division One, Division Two, and Division Three athletes are currently trapped in the transfer portal. So that means we're getting talent from multitudes of colleges that you wouldn't really expect, that we wouldn't really expect to hear from, just because everyone's moving around constantly year to year, semester to semester, whatever that school has. And another reason why I think it's going to be really interesting is just the fact that right now there's over 10 head coaching jobs available. And that's the most that we've had since 2021, where over nine coaches, head coaches at that, like they got fired and that organization has the head coach job available. We had prolific coaches like Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh all be fired in this kind of coaching cycle. And it's just a lot of teams, a lot of organizations gonna have to find a new identity for, for coaches that they've had for, over decades, multiple decades. So I think that all like entirely just gonna make the draft a whole lot more interesting to look at in totality. With all that being said, I'll be mock drafting the first 10 picks of the upcoming NFL draft, giving you analytics, some insight to the player and their potential NFL matchup. Now, finally, the moment we all been waiting for, let's talk about my first pick for the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. The Raiders' first overall pick will be Heisman star quarterback Fernando Mendoza. And this pick actually becomes very intriguing and maybe debatable for multiple reasons. The main one being the Raiders need so much help right now. As we talk about today, like they just, like I talked about earlier, head coach Pete Carroll just got fired, and they only have Max Crosby and Brock Bowers as viable weapons to either trade for or try to develop more. And so they just need so much help from top to bottom of the roster. Quarterback solely just isn't going to be enough to do the trick. But they need almost everything that they can get. So the question is, like, do they trade back a spot or two so they can stockpile some draft picks and build up their roster? They have a ton of cap space this year and could possibly dive into some free agency if they want to. But we'll see what they bring, especially for the head coach. I think that's going to be most important to them. The question about Mendoza, does he scream upside? Does he have the upside of like a Drake May, a Caleb Williams, a Jaden Daniels that we've seen guys who have potential in the league and come in the league first 2 years fast and make deep playoff pushes like all these three quarterbacks his name have done so far. And I think that's just the important part that a lot of people are wondering. Uh, you know, but he's a very safe pick because of his accuracy. He's very smart. He's very experienced. He's a prototypical size for a quarterback you want. His floor is probably pretty high. And then, all those stuff are good things. It's just his superstar potential is what we question. And, but he's really been phenomenal this year with the Indiana Hoosiers. They're playing the national championship today. And even back when he played for Cal, he was doing a great job. And it's just really improved his stock overall and put himself in the driving seat to be the first overall pick. Moving on, the second overall pick, I have the New York Jets picking quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. And things get real interesting when it comes to Trinidad Chambliss just because it was just breaking news the other day that he will not get another year to play at Ole Miss. He had told Ole Miss that he was going to come back another year to play, but that was contingent on whether the NCAA would approve his appeal to play another season because of eligibility issues. So we might have to see Ole Miss take the NCAA to court to try to sell this stuff out. But my question is the way that he's played and the way, the phenomenal impact he's made, why not just go to the draft now? Your stock is probably the highest it's ever been at this point in time. And the Jets need you. Like I think it would be a great fit. I think Aaron Glenn, the New York Jets head coach, I think that the whole staff would just love him. You know, they would love Chandler, see exactly what they're looking for. It's pretty evident that, they want a quarterback on deck, stemming of the issues that they had last year, rotating three, if we're going to talk about mediocre backup caliber quarterbacks. Um, and I think he's really just helped his stock during the Ole Miss run. Did come short playing Miami, but when he throws the ball, it's just a pop. He has a quick release, the athleticism, he can make every throw. But the biggest thing is that he's a winner. He won at Ferris State, a D2 program, won the national championship there. Almost got to the national championship with Ole Miss his first year, coming in as a backup and taking over, even with Lane Kiffin leaving to go to LSU. Like he's just a winner, man. That's the thing. That's the big thing. I think the biggest concern for him is just like a little undersized. He's about 6 foot. Maybe he's actually listed at 6'1", but that could possibly be even shorter than that. But uh, another big question that I think about is Dante Moore. That was one I thought about. Dante Moore out of Oregon. Would he be the number second pick? But we just found out that last week that he's going to go back to Oregon for another year to go start. So to me, with that being said, and all those factors, I think Trinidad Chambliss, if he does not get his appeal like he that is looking like, I think the Jets sees a clearly number two overall pick in the draft. At the number three pick, we have the Cardinals. They go three and they will pick Miami right tackle Francis Maui Noah. A big reason Miami is still alive and going to play a national championship today is because of that trenches, man. Cristobal has those boys ready to play week in and week out. And I think that, the way they protect Carson Beck, and that's the reason why they're still playing today. And Maui Noah is just a star, man. Straight up monster, straight mauler. When people say, "Do you have that dog in him?" Maui Noah has that dog in him. I tell you that. Um, Arizona could possibly go with Utah right tackle Fanu, or consider running back Jeremiah Love because of Connor's injury, and quarterback wouldn't even be a bad option. But since Dante Moore is going to stay in college for another year, I don't think they're going to want to reach for a quarterback this high, especially with the talent that Maui Noah has right here. But I like the pick, and I think that knowing that they have to replace Jonah Williams right now, right tackle at the moment, I think this is just a safe pick. And go develop him, build, get a backup quarterback, go develop, and have Maui Noah as a secure pass protector for your quarterback. Y'all
Splash.
hear that? This is my first splash pick of the draft, man. Makai Lemon out of USC. I really like the pick for the Titans just because he's a Cali kid. I support all that. He's competed with Makai Lemon, myself, and multiple high school camps, and I'm just a big supporter overall. I just love his game. I love his game overall. I think I'm waiting for him. I've been waiting for him to blossom since he's been to USC, and it finally happened, winning the 2025 Blitnikoff Award. Uh, the pick could be Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State if he checks out with his durability. But I love the fit with Cam Ward and Makai Lemon. He'll play right away. He'll dominate the slot. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's just the safe pick overall for if you're a Titans fan and you want your new franchise starting quarterback to have a weapon, I don't think you can go wrong with Makai Lemon. And he's a big guy. He's gonna get you separation. He's gonna make the big time plays. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, but at the point catch and the contested catches that you see, you would think that the way that he plays. And I think he's actually very underrated and very solid. He's a guaranteed great connection with Cam Ward and Makai Lemon. And I actually love this pick for the Titans. At number five, we have the New York Giants picking Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. They definitely need help across the board on defense, other than defensive line. The defensive line is stacked with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kevon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter last year. And they just need someone. They need the back end guys. They need the linebackers and they need safety depth and safety secondary depth for sure. And I think Downs can play multiple alignments on safety. He can play safety. He can play high safety. He can play in the box, play nickel. He can even play a little like weak side, outside linebacker for them. He's very versatile. Another guy who I consider they would pick is Jeremiah Love, the star running back out of Notre Dame. But with that Scatterboo coming back and Jackson Dart, I think they want to keep those connections fresh. Both rookie guys coming off, he's coming off injury, and it was just a fruit for thought. But the one question is, who they end up hiring? I think they want John Harbaugh, and I just got confirmation that a couple of days ago, John Harbaugh did take the job, and because of that, I think it changes the dynamic a lot because you know, after firing Brian Daboll, they needed a new start. And I think John Harbaugh is that guy who's gonna old school player. He's gonna old school coach. He's gonna bring that intensity that the Giants need for them to be great again. And we've seen Harbaugh pick safeties multiple times in the first round of draft picks, and I think this is no different for them. This is no different for him. I think he's gonna stick with what he's done in the past, and he also values the running game as well. So that's why Jeremiah Smith also was a thought for me. But I mean, you look at both sides of the ball. Caleb Downs is arguably the best defensive player for surely in the whole draft, and he's arguably one of the best players overall in the draft. I feel like this just picked the best player available, and I think this is where the Giants go. At number six, I have the Browns picking Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. I strongly considered offensive lineman Spencer Fondu again as a tackle. Helps Shadur Sanders, gave whoever they have starting quarterback next year back there, protecting him. But I feel like Tyson is just an intriguing prospect in all the process, just because he's a star. He's legit. He has all the traits that you look for in a pro receiver. I think he has the potential to be a Pro Bowl, even All Pro receiver one day. But the big question for us is how poorly for teams has durability concerns been. He's been banged up. So last year he was out. He didn't play in the Big 12 championship game when something popped up, and he was held out even this year. The same thing, something popped up and he just didn't play in a couple games. And you want to, the question is like, are these minor injuries popping up, or are they just maybe things they're not telling people? One thing that I think about is maybe, especially this year, since he knew that he was such a great talent and he knew that he was going to go to draft, maybe he was just playing it safe. Why not playing so he can heal himself, rehab himself to be ready for when the draft comes and training camp comes. But if that's the case, then you feel a little bit better about it. But you just never know. But I think he possibly be the best or the first wide receiver taken off the board. And either way, you're gonna get a really good football player out of him. And the just question is like, will he hold up? Will he be able to come in, week out, and provide and perform, and even take a couple bangs and bruises and still come up in the next week and ball out? So just the consistency is my bad. Just the consistency is uh, that's just all the question is about here. And from the bottom line, receiver, they need a big time receiver for Shadur Sanders or whatever quarterback they have back there. And big time players make big time plays, big time games. I think that's what Jordan Tyson's all about. We got a little jumpy over there. I was ready to talk about this guy. Got a little jumpy for the sticks, but we're back with it. So for the number seven overall pick, I have the Washington Commanders picking Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. And I think I love this fit, at number seven. Arvell Reese, he's a linebacker, edge defender, kind of a hybrid kind of guy. And I think it's just a perfect fit for defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, just for the fact that, I feel like he would use him off the edge, put him off the ball, blitz him off the ball. Bobby Wagner is a Hall of Famer, but his career is coming to an end, even though he's still balling out, which is crazy. But you just know that he's not going to be there for another 5 years. He maybe has another two, if that. So you want to try to get another game record in there quick. You have Frankie Louvu in there as well. I think those show a really good matchup because Frankie Louvu is a really good blitzer off the ball. But like I said, Louvu's a little younger, but you still need superstardom. I think that's what ROH will give you. Um, and I think that possibly, you know, it's such a great fit for Dan Quinn. I think can he possibly turn ROH Reese into the next Michael Parsons? Like, question mark. Like can he do it? I mean, I'm not gonna step here and just say that he's gonna turn into the great Michael Parsons and dominate off the rip. But he definitely has those intangibles and has that skill set. And with Dan Quinn coming from the Dallas Cowboys and him being the pinnacle guy who was, coaching Michael Parsons and kind of seeing the same potential as Arvo Reese, you just never know. Anything could happen. And I feel like that is the I think it's just a perfect fit for Dan Quinn. Arvo Reese going to number 7 to the Washington Commanders. For the number 8 pick, we have Saints running back or potential Saints running back. Notre Dame star running back, Heisman candidate, Jeremiah Love. Love is just too hard to pass up. I feel like he's an elite talent. Like I said, he was a Heisman finalist at running back. And the Saints need to they need to get the running game going. Coach Kellen Moore, he was really good with the Eagles last year with Saquon Barkley back there breaking all the records and basically taking the Eagles to the Super Bowl and ultimately helping them win the Super Bowl. But it was a down year for him in the running game for the Saints this year. But everything else was kind of getting going down the stretch with Tyler Shough at quarterback. He's starting to show that he can be a capable quarterback in the NFL. And I think that, all that I think just help build around him, Alvin Kamara at running back, he's getting older. His career is probably not gonna last that much longer with all the injuries and all that, but he wants to retire a Saint. He wants to start his career with the Saints, he wants to end with career with the Saints. So I think just the transition of getting Kamara out and putting Jeremiah Love in, I think that's just a great fit. I think Alvin Kamara can be a great mentor for Jeremiah Love as the two come in and battle it out. Kamara, um, I just think he's going to be a great mentor for him. Him and Jeremiah Love have the same similar skill sets, being able to catch the ball out the backfield and just be wicked in space. And I think that's where Love's. I think that's where Love's going to thrive. Like I said, he's an elite running back talent, and he's going to help out with the pass game with being a great receiver and pass catcher. But of course, he's going to run downhill. He's going to make people miss. He's a pretty big guy. I didn't know this at first, but he's pretty big. He's about 6 foot, 6'1", about 220. So he's definitely going to be. He's not going to be a complete bruiser like Derrick Henry, but he's definitely going to make some guys miss. Definitely going to turn his legs, get the ball going downhill. And I think that's what the Saints need to turn their franchise around with these young group of players. Ah, whoa. Y'all heard that right? That's that dog. Because Ruben Bain is my dog pick of the draft. I love Ruben Bain. He's gonna be playing tonight. I'm gonna be watching him tonight in the national title game. And I'm just excited to hear what this man is going to do. The Chiefs at 9. First of all, who would have thought that the Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs, right? Who would have thought they would be picking at number 9? Like, that's crazy. Who would have thought they would be picking in the top 10 anytime soon? But I think Ruben Bain Jr. is the most in. Well, see, I'm getting so excited. I'm over here knocking stuff down. But I think he's one of the most intriguing prospects of the NFL draft. I think he's regarded as one of the best defensive players overall, and I definitely have no argument. To me, he's top two. Him and Caleb Downs are battling for the best defensive player, and I'm definitely edging towards Ruben Bain. But since I'm a defensive lineman, I might just be a little biased, but it's all right. But there's gonna be questions definitely about his length. His arm length is not the longest. But regardless, he's a game changer. He's a game record. He's a true ball player. He could flat out play. Like when you see dogs, when you see ball players, Ruben Bain's the guy. He can get after the quarterback off the edge. He can win inside. You can see he's good with stunts. He's opening defenders. He's opening offensive linemen up for his other defenders to make plays, and that's exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs want. The big question will just be, um, Will teams that know that they need an edge rusher, will they be willing to take him this early just because of his length? It's just how it goes in the NFL. This is the big time leagues. They want guys who are prototypically closer to the physical side that they want. So for him being about 6'3", 6'4", but his arm length being pretty short, that's just going to derail his as much as talented as he is, it's just going to derail what teams think about him in the NFL. And not every team's going to want to, or not every team's going to like his length and love it. So they're going to they're just gonna just pass him off. And I think that the Chiefs do take a chance with him. They took guys like Ashton Gillatory from Louisiana last year, and he's kind of similar body type, not the tallest guy. He's more like 6'2", 260, shorter arms. But I think that this can fit in the Kansas City Chiefs defense just because of how diverse they are in their defensive alignments. And Ruben Bain, he has a stubby, powerful build. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him, come in as an edge rusher, but then they move him inside to three technique, possibly like 4-eye, two kind of guy, kind of just play more inside. But I think I'm excited. I think the Chiefs are gonna have fun with him. I think they take a shot at him. It's definitely gonna be fun to watch him play. But yeah, Ruben Bain at number 9 for the Kansas City Chiefs. And finally, the last pick, we have number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals picking Clemson defensive tackle Peter Woods. I love Peter Woods. I've been watching Peter Woods for years now. He came out of my high school class, 2023 graduating class, and you know, just just watching him play from back then, I was just like, he's gonna be special. And you just watched him play. He just was consistent, consistent, consistent. And the Bengals need defense, defense, and more defense. They got that potential superstar edge rusher Shamar Stewart, who didn't pan out what they wanted to this season last year as a rookie, but and now they're gonna have to go back defensive tackle, and which they badly need, and Peter Woods. They haven't had a competent defensive tackle since they were in the Super Bowl in 2022, 2021. No, 2023. That's when they won. That's when they went to Super Bowl to play against the Rams and lost. They haven't had a good defensive tackle since then in DJ Reader, who's now playing for the Detroit Lions. So since then, they have they have just been getting beat up and gashed on defense for the past 3 years. And Clemson had a down year, but Pierre Wood still definitely looks the part, played his butt off, and he can definitely move around a little bit in the interior. He can play the 1, the 0, the 3, 4-eye tech, even 5 tech if they need him to. He reminds me of like a Cam Ward, or not Cam Ward, or excuse me, Cam Hayward from Pittsburgh Steelers. Kind of just he's a big guy, but he's also very versatile on the line. He could play, like I said, he could play all up and up down the line. So that's why I really like him as a player. And I think the Bengals is not going to be it's not going to he's not going to come in and be a game breaker like Aaron Donald and change the whole defense around. But I think it's a good starting fit for the Bengals, especially they tap into free agency and some other draft picks down the line. I think they can kind of change their season around with having superstar trio on the offense with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. So that's why I have the Bengals picking Peter Woods at number 10. I know, I know. I did a great job. ESPN needs to give me a job to now. But nah, in all seriousness, there's still a lot of time. We're still in the middle of the NFL playoffs. NCAA college championship is today, like I mentioned before. So a lot of still things to come. We still have 3 months of offseason talks and coaches getting hired, more coaches possibly getting fired, and all that kind of offseason news to break out before the draft even commence or even we're really thinking about it. But thank you. That's all we have for today with Big Charles Broadcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you once again. I hope to see you guys tune in again. Peace.